Let me say thanks. Thanks very much for being here tonight. I know all of us have ensued a bit of chaos this afternoon. So from a district standpoint, we had staff that we were trying to manage with a tornado warning and kids in programs, and then just personal lives of kids being in shelter in place. So I know you all were probably dealing with the exact same things, if not more. So we appreciate you being here. And we don't have a ton of people online, and Victoria and I were talking about that with the weather. The great news is that we are recording this and we're going to get it out on the web tomorrow, and we'll get information out to folks so that everyone can participate. We'll talk a little bit more about next steps. But I just wanted to go ahead and introduce some of the folks who are going to be online tonight. My name is Tracy Wieland. I'm the district manager for Ken Carroll Ranch. We have Victoria Desser, who is the administrative analyst for the district. She is going to be managing the Q&A function. And then for folks who would like to ask any questions towards the end, which we will have Q&A, she'll be managing the unmuting and the muting and all of those technical issues with Zoom. Richard Plack is online. He is our parks director. And we also have our crew from Brightview Design Group. So we've got Ryan Sand on, we've got Jordan Bridgman and Elliot Hoyt. And we also have Scott Fredrickson, who is also working on the project. So just wanted to make sure that we connected you with all of those folks who have been working very diligently on this project. And with that, let's just jump right in. So we wanted to catch you up as to where we have been and where we are today and how this is culminating. We started the process back in December. And what we initially did was a lot of conversations with the community about what could community park look like. Talking about priorities and objectives and goals for the project. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a few minutes. That dovetailed into our second community meeting, where we talked more about different concepts. And that was a really fun process because three very distinct, different, wonderful, amazing, creative concepts were developed and were given to the community. And surprisingly, the community liked a little bit of all of them. So if you've been part of this process so far, you'll notice how it's really a culmination of all of the different things that people liked. And Ryan's going to talk a lot more about that here in a couple of minutes. That brings us to today. So this is our presentation to the community about the preferred concept plan. And our agenda for this evening, we're going to be talking a little bit about the overall project. I'll be doing most of that information, and then I'll turn it over to Ryan and Brightview to talk a little bit more about the concept itself. And then we'll get to the Q&A. So we're hoping that we can get the presentation done in 30 minutes and then save at least 30 minutes for the Q&A. Please note that things don't necessarily stop there. You'll see the second part of this over on the right-hand column about how you can stay involved. And so how you can stay involved, there's a couple of meetings that are coming up. So we have the Community Planning Committee, and that is a committee that is heavily involved in the community survey. And those folks really have the pulse on not only that survey process, but the results of that process. So Community Park is able to help correct and address some of the issues that have been coming up repeatedly in the community survey. So we're presenting to them on May 22nd. And then there's a presentation at the regular board meeting for the Metropolitan District on May 23rd. And then the fun begins for the district board because they will have lots of options to consider at that point in time. None of these are guaranteed. So they can approve the plan. They can consider phasing of this in the 10-year capital plan, which is something that hopefully all of you are familiar with the district implementing a handful of years ago. They can consider this as part of potential phasing with any contemplation of a possible mill levy election. And then they can engage staff, give us the green light to potentially move forward with design processes. And that's where we can get to actually moving towards actually the project or portions of the project coming to fruition. So how can you stay involved? Not only can you go to any one of those meetings and make sure that you're engaged, you can also always contact me. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Obviously, Richard is on the ground from a parks perspective, and he can help answer questions as well. We can engage the Brightview team in answering questions. You also can follow us on any of our outlets for media, the newspaper, the e-news, social media, and all of those different outlets to make sure that you are staying up to date. So this slide is a repeat slide. So for any of you who have been part of this process so far, you will absolutely recognize this. So it talks about some of the considerations for this project, and you're going to see some reoccurring themes as part of this. So safety is definitely one of them, updated facilities. We also went into this project knowing that there were a handful of things that we just really couldn't address or we weren't prepared to change or modify. The Veterans Monument being one of them, converting Prairie Meadows into an active play space, and then discussing any type of a dog park, because that process has already resulted in a different recommendation, and that was not community park. So obviously the goals and objectives really align with that. So the improvement of safety, you'll notice that at Community Park now, there is some very close proximity of different user groups. And this plan really needed to address pulling those apart as much as we possibly could so that we could separate those uses and we can make things much more safe. And we also heard a lot about access in the park and around the park, and then making sure that people can get to the park and to their activity safely. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Facilities is always a big one. We hear repeatedly and all the time about restrooms at Community Park. So it does include restrooms. That was one thing that we wanted to make sure and address. Richard's going to talk a little bit more about our antiquated and highly inefficient irrigation system. That was one thing that needed to be addressed. Those are examples of the updates to the facilities. And then also increased activity. So tying back to the community survey, one of the things that we hear repeatedly is that folks want increased programming opportunities, and really social space is one of those things that really comes high to the list. So this gives opportunities for that as well. And that was definitely a goal and an objective. The purpose of this project, really, if you boil it down and you get up to a 30,000 foot level, is to focus on Community Park has been an amazing park for the Ken Carroll community for 30 years. We need to look at how Community Park can be that amazing park for our kids and our grandkids, take it into the next 30 years. How this process worked and the purpose of today's meeting is really to roll out to you the culmination of your feedback and how this preferred concept is really exactly what you had told us as part of the community meeting #1 and #2, and what you've been telling us for years as part of the community survey. Other reminders, I want to make sure that this is really clear to folks. This is an ongoing and reoccurring concern of folks. Please remember that Community Park is not a privately owned facility. It is a district-owned park, and that means it is a public park. So it is not like the private open space in the Master Association, and there are no restrictions for its use. So make sure and keep that in mind. The other note I will tell you is a master planning process is just the first step in implementing a vision for a certain area. So this provides you the vision. This doesn't provide you with a shovel is going into the ground tomorrow to start work. There's a lot of steps in between that. Obviously, we have to go to the board and determine where the board would like to do with this. We have to align funding with the phasing opportunities. We also have to complete additional design iterations. So there's a lot that has to be done before anything gets improved. The other thing is, please keep in mind that throughout this process, it doesn't stop with regard to community input. When we continue to move forward with the design iterations, we'll get back in touch with you and we'll let you know. And we'll actually start to get down to a much more granular level, as opposed to that 30,000 foot level that we're going to try to keep you at throughout today's meeting and likely for the next handful of months. So community feedback, I've talked a lot about that. Let's talk a little bit about exactly what we have heard. So some of the survey results in the comments, there was a desire for field improvements, and you'll see that safety was a consideration in that, fencing is a consideration, backstops, which also ties into safety. And it really ties into that second note of overall safety within the facility. And we also heard a lot about safety, not only just from a sports and user group standpoint, but from folks having to currently cross the street or park on the street. They came up with a fantastic idea of having parking on the east side. And so we have taken that concept and we have run with it. And so I'm hoping that you'll be very pleased with that improvement that you all directly requested. The bottom quote on this really hits home with regard to community park. It's the heart of the community on the weekends, and I would definitely agree with that. Other things that we heard from you, walkability and access is really important. So you're going to see some considerations of that, allowing improved access throughout the complex, not just on the perimeter. The design really needed to be sensitive to water use, and that is something that Richard is going to talk about from a philosophical standpoint and the district and the direction we would like to move for all of our facilities, not just community park. We needed to really look at the safety and the orientation of the baseball fields. I've said that a handful of times. Pickleball was high on a lot of folks' list, but there was concern about having it close to houses. So you'll see that there's consideration for that, and it's pulled as far as it can possibly be away from houses. North parking lot, I've already mentioned that a little bit. Increased play opportunities, not only from a playground standpoint, but from a bike and youth bike course type of standpoint. And then community gathering spaces, just constant need and desire for that ability to gather with neighbors and family members and community members to be able to build better and stronger community in Ken Carroll. So I've mentioned a handful of times the community survey. So these next 3 slides are going to provide you basically a checking of the boxes with some things that have come up as repeated themes. So the first 2 slides are on the 2021 community survey. The third one is on the 2017. And you will see a theme in these issues that have arisen. The check marks signify what community park and the concept plan could address. It might correct, it might enhance, it might just plain make better, but those checks really mean that we are addressing things that came directly from the community survey. And keep in mind, if you're not familiar with the community survey, we have tremendous participation in that. We have usually 50% of every household in Ken Carroll participating in that survey, which is unheard of from a survey standpoint. So this is really what you can consider is representative of Ken Carroll. So let's go through that really quick. This first question, the top investment suggestions. So new special events, a gathering location, social space, upgraded playgrounds, including shade, which is going to be a consideration. Restrooms, it's just a nonstop consideration. Dedicated pickleball courts, bike park, and upgraded playing fields. Uh-oh. Sorry, I'm having my computer's being very slow. Okay. Sorry, I think I lost you guys for a moment. Okay. Sorry, I lost my space here because I lost you for a moment. Well, for whatever reason, my slideshow is not cooperating. Okay, we'll come back to that one. 2017, so the question that was asked was, should Ken Carroll Ranch expand or make available the following? Again, you will see themes, parks, remodels, and updates. This concept plan absolutely checks that box. Restroom facilities, again, we keep hearing it. Paved paths, community events, some type of social space, whether that be concert or outdoor event or special event gathering space. Bike park, soccer and multi-purpose fields, pickleball, and baseball fields. So again, you're seeing that by virtue of community park and this process, we are able to not only address the safety concerns that are currently, that we currently experience at community park, but we're able to address quite a lot of issues that have been reoccurring with the community survey. So with that, Ryan, I believe that it is your turn.
Thanks, Tracy. And if you'd like, I could also share that one slide.
Yeah, I don't know what is wrong with mine. If you don't mind.
Yeah, I can take over since I'll be taking over from here.
Okay, for whatever reason, it is not cooperating with my computer.
Would you be able to enable sharing?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, give it a go now.
I think you have to stop sharing.
Oh, ha!
Great.
This isn't my first time running Zoom. Maybe my second.
Great. Can everyone see my screen? There we go.
Yes, okay. So here's the second question that was asked in the 2021 community survey. What are the top 3 amenities that you would like to see improved or expanded? Paved trails, community events, playgrounds, pickleball courts, multi-purpose fields, baseball, softball. So I could say it ad nauseum that there's themes, and these themes are able to be addressed with this concept. All right, Ryan, back to you.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, I think we just want to start where we started from the beginning as well, and just really identifying that this has always been, and we want to continue to see it as a neighborhood park that has sports and has play and serves the community throughout the week, during the weekdays and on the weekends. But with those, as Tracy mentioned, this nice local neighborhood park really can benefit from some added safety considerations, improving the facilities, including adding restrooms, enhancing the fields, and making it more accessible. And then looking at what Tracy just shared, which was those additional, envisioned amenities, and seeing if there's ways to kind of integrate those so that we can really see kind of all 3 of those priorities come together. Another piece of this really is going to be bouncing. As you can see, we have a lot of turf. Now that's a part of having sports as a key feature to a park, but with your community's intent of trying to be water conscious and find ways of saving water, what are ways that we could really focus the turf where we want it, and then use some of that existing, that other space for amenities, or just reestablish native. So that really has led to us collecting the feedback from those 3 different options and coming together to this one solution. Now, looking at this as a large piece, what you're really going to notice is we have the northern portion that is adjacent to all of these existing residences. We have the eastern portion here along the road and this existing native piece, and then the west, which is adjacent to the school right here. What that really means for us is we really want to try and keep the low impact, really more quiet elements closer to these residences, respect the privacy, but also really have that activity lower on the south portion of this site. And what you're also going to notice as we look in the larger scale, we have this one road, Sangre de Cristo, that is now really going to be that putting all of the activity on the east side of Sangre de Cristo. What that really does is it helps us focus on aggregating all of that activity, but increasing safety by minimizing the amount that people have to walk across streets, park along streets, increasing that safety, increasing that accessibility by making it much easier for people to enter the space, whether you're coming from the neighborhood or driving to the space, and then down into the space. With these core areas, we're also really addressing the waterways. As you can see, we minimized a good portion of that turf and really focused it to where we're going to be having sports. Excuse me one second. Dedicated, once again, this was originally for sports, and we want to keep it that way. Really keeping to the same amount of sports fields for multi-purpose fields up on the north side for soccer, lacrosse, flat touch football, flag football, and for baseball, as well as Little League down here on the south. And another piece that you're going to hear us talk about in a little bit is we really wanted to be contextually responsible. What that means is working with the existing site, working with the existing grades. For those who aren't, just as a refresher, who haven't been out there in a while, the Prairie Meadows is up on a hill as it slopes down, and then there's a really nice sloped bench, as we would call it, right off of Sangre de Cristo, which then steps down at times almost 8 to 10 feet lower to the baseball fields. We wanted to use that to create a really strong sense of identity, as well as walking experience and separation for safety. So with that, we're going to dive into the 6 focal areas. we're actually going to start from the top with the Prairie Meadows, the Youth Bike Park, over on the west side of Sangre de Cristo, and then find our way over on the east side, where we're going to be looking at the promenade, the core restroom facilities, the baseball fields, the multi-purpose fields, and the expanded playground. What you're noticing here with Prairie Meadows Park is not a lot, and that was very intentional. What we really wanted to do was improve access to help neighbors, and you can see that here from adding just one additional trail to help people from the park find their way up to this already special lawn parks portion right here. We want to keep that as is, and tying on with the existing native gardens that are already there, we want to add and expand from that, creating opportunities for low impact learning experiences, little areas for people to gather and sit. And with this, we're going to expand that garden. And what we would recommend is almost like a demonstration garden using Colorado native plants. I don't know, for my horticulture savvy friends out there, Plant Select is one of those really strong advocates, and they would have a great recommendation for material that we could use for low water use, show that that can be beautiful as well. And so with this would be, extension seating, bench seating, and just a little bit of trail extension on this area. As we move to the south, the Youth Bike Park is taking a underutilized, unpaved parking lot that's on the west side, originally located right here, and reestablishing it as native. Now, a piece of that parking lot, and we've visited the site several times, and I'm sure you have as well, is people are always parking on the right side and not using that. So with that unused space, why not reestablish it, provide several little seating spots for people to kind of take advantage of that really nice steep hill up above, and then using that existing site as well, protected a little bit further away on the backside slope from the residences, is having a smaller youth bike park, something close to almost a 2 foot to 3 foot wide native dirt track. And with that, maybe having a few fun little bridges or little events for kids to kind of like local neighborhood kids to just come by and just kind of roll around in nature in new ways. With this, we'd also recommend just having something like a bike pump station so that the kids, as they're using there, maybe they get to learn how to use their bike a little bit more. As we move to the next portion, we're going to cross the street here, and what we would recommend a new crossing walk right here, making sure that it's highly visible. We're going to move to the core of Community Park. Before we dive into all the different pieces happening here, I really just want to kind of highlight that, once again, we want to start with our priorities of having improved facilities. So where we're going to start is right here in the middle. We're going to call this the core heart of Community Park. With that is a new restroom building and picnic pavilion that would be a visible center point for the rest of the community park. This core would be located near the road to increase visibility of safety, to make sure that you have passerbyers, even the local authorities would have great visibility into the park and the facilities themselves. This also creates a really great landmark for those coming anywhere else from the park, whether they're playing baseball and kids need to take a break and hop to the restroom, or they're way out here playing soccer, they would know exactly what that landmark feature over here. To help bring everything together from this core, we've used that existing slope, expanded it a little bit, and created what we'll call the promenade. And this promenade pathway really is the connecting, unifying factor for the rest of the park. This will help us create much better access from up above, as well as gradually slope down for those who need additional access support down to the fields. And everything will connect, once again, leading towards the core, providing some stairway access for that direct connection across those steep slopes, but then once again, ramping right back up and creating a really nice tree-lined, pedestrian-focused walkway for those who just want to have a nice loop around the park itself. The nice thing about this promenade walk is that it connects us to all our new potential amenities. We'll start from the top, and as we've kind of talked about that underused parking lot on the north side, we now have reconnected with the existing street structure to make sure that we're working well with what's already happening and providing an opportunity for cars to pull off of the road, park, and go use the amenities for the soccer fields. You know, we like to think about how you have your mom who's juggling 3 kids who are practicing, and instead of trying to pull the cooler out and balancing the 2 kids on the road, we can now have them contained within a safe parking lot and help them go access those amenities safely. As we move further down, you'll see we provided, and some of the feedback we heard from the community, in addition to the safety and the facilities, was added amenities. And a part of that was the expanded playground and providing new opportunities to add to this existing playground. And a piece of that we heard was that your community would like to have several smaller shelters so that many people could have their own little pods of picnics, of gatherings, so that whether they're in between sport events or they just want to come relax, that they're not going to be hindered by one person reserving the entire picnic shelter. As we kind of move further down, we find ourselves at the existing playground. And so we've done our best to integrate with exactly where it is and tie into that and use that, because it's a pretty fantastic set of playground. We just want to add to it. That will lead us to the core, as we've already talked about. And then here on the south side, you'll see a larger space dedicated to social community gathering. This is what we would call the formal promenade, which may even be used for food trucks to pull in, picnic tables with some additional seating, and just creating an opportunity for a flex space for the community, whether it's a sporting event or it's a larger community gathering, or even something if the school wants to spill out into the park for a fundraising opportunity. And then as we follow that unifying promenade path, we find ourselves down to the south with the recommendation for a pickleball court. This further away from the residences, make sure that we don't have any noise concerns, but we are using the existing parking lot, really kind of using it as a double factor for those who would want to use this as well. Talking beyond these, we really just can revisit the fields themselves. As we talked about, we tried to keep to the existing field count. And you can see really kind of constraining it with this nice formal walkway. That way we don't have to encourage our kids to walk outside of the fence as it is right now along this path, but we have a nice organized pathway to really delineate the extent of where the community park is. And this ideally would provide everybody with a comfortable access to all the different amenities throughout the park itself. Here's a quick visualization of what that would look like from up above. As you can see here, we have our core space, and with that new picnic pavilion with restroom facilities, it is the center of all activity. It's an easy wayfinding part for whether you're out here out in the fields, you're down below, and you can see that signature building. It also provides the core route for the promenade for the community gatherings, whether it's a festival event or just a local birthday, and then how that can also spill out to the expanded playgrounds happening here. And then beyond, you can even see the north parking lot really becoming the bookend to the rest of this park, really creating great access for those who have had to drive to the space. And then as you can see, this pathway along the promenade walk meanders up to our designated new crosswalk, whether you want to stop by the Veterans Monument or wander up into the native prairie meadows. Our goal here really was to take that prairie meadows and help it come down back into the community park as a sense of water-wise use to address some of our water-wise needs. And then one last little piece to talk about here is that contextually responsible piece I mentioned before. Here you can kind of see where we took that grade change that, as you know, the pavilion, right, the shade structure is sitting above the playground, it's sitting adjacent to the playground above the fields. we've taken that, expanded it a little bit, and really spread it across all of the fields so that the baseball as well as the soccer now has an additional place to sit and watch the game on a shaded, hilly slope. Another piece about this that's really helpful is this adds an additional safety barrier, taking it a little bit further, or taking it further, the baseballs away from those playground elements right there and the pedestrians walking by. And with that, I'm going to have Jordan kind of share some of the exciting experiences that you would have if you were inside the space itself.
Yeah, so if you take a look to the bottom left here, we show where this view is taken from. So this is kind of that central hub that Ryan was talking about, right around the front entry, the baseball fields, the restroom, and the large picnic pavilion. So this is really the center of that activity, showing any sort of community events or food truck opportunities in that promenade. Bringing down from Prairie Meadows some of that native planting, Colorado native planting that you see here in the foreground. And again, just highlighting that lawn slope that in the current park is actually pretty heavily used during ball games. So really just improving on that aspect with that buffer from the people and from the sporting events. Giving you plenty of opportunity for seating, lots of shade here, trying to highlight that. And then again, easy access from the parking lot to that restroom, and then easy access from the restroom down to the fields. And just giving you lots of opportunities for breakout spaces for different seating events, whereas the current park only has the one shade pavilion opportunity. And then this one is taken from the other angle. You can see the bottom left there. This is coming across from more of the bike park area across that new crosswalk here, looking into the expanded playground. So off in the distance, you can see the existing playground will remain, and you see that off in the background. And then this just expands on those play pods, adds some different play elements, for different age kids to experience different things. Again, highlighting that safe access into the park, the more multiple shade pavilions, so you have those breakout spaces, and really just highlighting some of those experiences that you see with the boulder seating, the wraparound walkways, things like that. And again, bringing that native planting down to really make that a cohesive vision from the Prairie Meadows down into the park space. And again, you can see that soccer space off in the distance there as well.
Yeah, to build onto that, a part of us really pulling that native experience down from Prairie Meadows into the park is another way of really being water wise and reducing the amount of turf that we have and converting that into native material and showing that that can be something beautiful and a part of the local Colorado experience. As we look at some concept imagery, you may see some pictures that we started at from the beginning. This is just us collecting imagery that we heard, that you liked, as well as putting in some of those existing photos from your project already. Our goal is just really to have a little kit of parts that we feel works well together. And you can see here how the different amenities and activities and materials can all work together to make a new, exciting experience. But in light of that water-wise conversation, we just really wanted to show what this new impact has done. So what you're seeing here is really 3 simple areas of the irrigated bluegrass turf, irrigated planting, and the native seed. The irrigated bluegrass turf, as you can see, remains unchanged as we sit on Prairie Meadows, but you can see a good portion has been skinnied down, mainly here along Sangre de Cristo on the west side of the park, as well as here on the east side of the park along Kipling. There really wasn't, looking at it, there was about 63% of the site was irrigated bluegrass turf, we reduced it down to about 35% of the site, meaning about a total reduction of 41% of the existing turf. The irrigated planting was fairly minimal, really kind of being considered over here by the parking lot. We chose to really focus that within this core area. This really, but as you kind of see percentage of the site wise, we only increased it from 0.2 acres to 0.4 acres. What this really means is we just doubled the amount of irrigated planting, shrubs, perennials, that native Colorado plants. However, what you can see is it's still not even 1% of the site. The native seed itself, you can see, was originally 31% of the site, and it became 49% of the site with about half of the 50% increase. And you can see integrating that Prairie Meadows native down into here. And so part of this is also addressing the irrigation use and designation for these areas, as well as coming up along Kipling. And then the hardscape, you can see, has only been 5% of the site, really dedicated to pathways around the community park. And here, by increasing it to about 15% of the site or adding 2 acres of hardscape, we've added those additional amenities, whether they were new playgrounds, added new parking, as well as this community social gathering spaces. With that, Richard, would you like to talk about how this relates to what Kent Carroll's doing on a larger scale?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Ryan. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I mean, as you can see through this the pretty amazing design here, that we were able to pull in all these other activities and other spaces, and yet be able to keep all of our usable bluegrass space and reduce that turf by over 40%. This is definitely a model of what we would like to see throughout all of our parks and areas. Be able to reduce our bluegrass in usable spaces and look to more native plantings whether it be hardscapes, whether it be, trees, native grasses and whatnot. And this is just an amazing model of what I would love to see go throughout the ranch. And, with that, I mean, all these changes are clearly going to bring the new irrigation system to a desperately needed new irrigation system to Community Park. With it being completely under-designed at this point right now, excuse me, we just have to overwater at an amazing rate just to keep it green at this point. So with all these changes, a new irrigation system, very much needed. And I mean, yeah, that's definitely the direction we want to go, is reducing this turf and upgrading our system to be a little bit more water conscious, if you will.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah. And so not only have we been looking at this with our irrigation team, but we've also been looking to seek out professional experience and insight from a geotechnical standpoint. As some of you may know, that there is a concern as far as what the soils are on the site and how that would impact future development. After receiving a geotechnical report for preliminary investigation on the site, we can really look at these the impacts of the soil on the site in 3 areas. And those really are on the key parts of our development over here. Once again, we're really not doing much development over in Prairie Meadows, so we really wanted to focus on the key activities over here. One, which is identified as subgrade prep, is really dedicated to any structures occurring within this area, not the grass and not the play fields. What that really means is that if there's new pavements, sidewalks, and utilities, that there may want to be a 5 feet of over excavation. And you can see that probably is only limited to a portion of this. This is really dedicated, this is really identified due to the material that was sampled in this portion of the site. Over on number 2, the Geo-Tech had sampled this area and identified that safe site grading to accommodate the improvements does not really appear to be necessary for the north fields, as well as some of the west activities and the amenities near this north field. What that means is we really don't have to worry from a subsoil standpoint as far as what the future development will be and how that would be impacted. And then here over in 3, where we have a lot of our high activity amenities, there's going to be the standard construction practices where they'll do the subgrade preparation and over excavation specific to structures such as the restroom, the playground features, and any of the shade structures. And then with that, we just really wanted to quickly highlight how this plan could come into action. Scott on our team has done a really great job as far as helping us analyze the sequence of this project. And what that really means is we wanted to start with the central core and the needs that your community has identified. As you can see here, this is including the restrooms, the picnic pavilion, as well as creating a sloped access walk from the parking lot down into the new relocated baseball infields, backstops, and dugouts. This also means a smaller concrete plaza, which will show you in a little bit how that integrates well with your existing site. From there, you can see that phase 2 and 3 are really focused on the multi-purpose fields, but here's the best part and our aim with this design. Phase 1, as the core of the site, really creates the backbone to any other future site. That connecting pathway that we identified before can create an opportunity for you to identify what amenity your community would like to do first and see how you could integrate it first. All that while the core area remaining intact and unimpacted. Whether it be the festival plaza for the community social gathering, the expanded playground with the additional shade structures, or the north parking lot here over to connect with Sangre de Cristo, as well as maybe even the pickleball courts. And then on the other side of Sangre de Cristo, the youth bike park and the Prairie Meadows. Really quickly, phase 1 could look.
Ryan's, I'm so sorry. Can you
Yeah.
go back to that? Can I interject really quickly?
Yeah, please.
Sorry. So just to give you a district perspective of this phasing plan, there is such beauty behind this type of phasing opportunity. It provides the board and the community the opportunity to move as fast or as slow as they would like to move. And furthermore, these aren't necessarily, with the exception of probably phase 1, 2, 3, these aren't necessarily in a sequence that has to be followed. So 4 through 9 could come about as the board and the community would like those to move, again, as fast or as slow. Obviously, funding is a consideration, which we'll talk about here in a minute, but there's beauty behind this type of a phasing plan. And I am so pleased with what Brightview was able to come up with, because we told them one of the highest priorities was obviously a restroom. And so trying to figure out how to get that restroom in addition to the reconfiguration of the baseball fields was a significant challenge for them, but it's done with this phasing opportunity. So we're really pleased with that. And Ryan, another really big favor, can you go back one more to the Geo-Tech? Just wanted to jump in on this one. Kumar and Associates is the independent consultant who provided this report. And there is a ton of historical knowledge with this particular firm. They assisted Jefferson County when Jefferson County redeveloped all of Sangre de Cristo back in 2003. So they are extremely familiar with this particular area and how it impacts the park and that road. So we have a ton of historical knowledge, and we feel really confident in the recommendations that they provided us as part of this report. Sorry, Ryan, back to you.
No, this is definitely worthwhile insight. Thanks, Tracy. Just to kind of really share what phase 1 would look like and how we introduce those core amenities, we just wanted to show a quick little snippet of how that is. Here, majority of the park is unchanged, but within this existing pathway, it would bring the grade up and introduce the restroom building and the picnic pavilion, really still acting as that future central core for community park. As you can see, with some regrading to connect with the existing slope that's already occurring there, we could create a pathway that connects directly to that existing pavilion as well as the existing playground. And then directly below, we start the baseball fields with 2 regulation fields with dugouts and backstops. This is not yet introducing the full perimeter fence, which would be done in the later phases. But what this allows is for us to add the concrete plaza for the baseball fields in case people want to place pop-up tents or have added gathering down by the fields. And then starting an introduction of that slope lawn along the length of the park, or at least the baseball fields for this first phase.
Great, my turn. So let's talk budget for a little bit. The first cautionary tale that I would tell you is please understand that we are at a conceptual master planning level. As I explained earlier, there are a lot of steps for the district to undertake before a shovel is put into the ground. And so these are not bid, these are not formal, these are conceptual master planning estimates. So you'll hear me say the word approximately quite often. And so development costs for full build out for this plan is approximately $5 million. We're still doing some work with regard to the Geo-Tech and ensuring that we have that mitigation, the final design work, which I explained as part of the ongoing process to have this come to fruition, and then contingency, how the board would like to address that. So keep that in mind. And the good news is the board was very fortuitous with this and was thinking ahead when the first capital plan was developed, the 10-year capital plan. They were thinking in terms of community park improvements. And so currently there's about $3 million earmarked in the district's capital plan. Earmarked is the important word in this statement because earmarked is not approved. The district only approves its budget annually. So the district board does not have the authority to approve any expenditures in the year 2024, 5, 6, 7, and so on. They only do it at a year at the time. But that doesn't mean that the district can't have plans and can't be looking ahead and developing a vision. That's exactly what they did. And so there's about $3 million earmarked in there. About a third of that was already earmarked as part of irrigation replacement. So prior to even embarking on this master planning effort, there was a severe need identified with this antiquated 30-year-old system that is really completely inefficient, as Richard has explained. And it is time for us to get more conservation minded. And that's where that $1 million comes into play. The other good news is that the district board has been talking for several years now about earmarking the remaining Plains Metropolitan District settlement funds for improvements to ball fields. And so what Ryan and his team have done in that phase 1 is getting a restroom, which is one of the highest needs from the community survey, and those ball field improvements. So we're really combining those two things into that first phase, which are the highest priorities for the community and the district. The other thing that we're obviously going to be doing is researching any grant opportunities that we might be able to take advantage of. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the beauty of a phasing plan is really just having that at your disposal, and the board having the opportunity to work with the community, determine, is it all 9 phases? Is it 4 phases? Is it no phases? That there's a lot of different opportunities for the board and the community to work together to determine, again, what they would like to introduce and how they would like to do it. So with that, if you want to go one more slide, Ryan. So we went over a little bit, but we'll take some questions, obviously. We'll do it a couple of different ways. A handful of you have already been using the Q&A function, and we're going to go through some of those answers really quick. And then Victoria will get unmute folks. If you're interested in making comment or asking questions, go ahead and raise your hand on the Zoom feature, and we'll go ahead and get that taken care of here in a minute. But let's jump to the Q&A. So here's just a handful that have come in. Jim had asked about, is there a softball field in the turf area on the southeast corner? Ryan, would you mind going back to that slide so that we could point that out really quick? That's actually a T-ball field. So number 9, this was a request that came directly from Ken Carroll Little League. And the question would be, is there a need? And the answer is yes. And is there room? And the answer is yes. So we can definitely fit that smaller, much less formal than the other 2 fields in that particular area. So other question that was asked. Do we envision maintaining most existing trees? Yes, we will maintain as many as we possibly can. We have struggled with a lot of the trees. And some of it goes back to that 2003 reconstruction throughout Sangre de Cristo that absolutely impacted the root system of a lot of those trees along that walkway. And we struggle with trees in that area regardless. So we will maintain as many as we possibly can. Let's see. Will you regrade the surface of the soccer field area or keep the roller coaster areas that are currently toward the north end? And thankfully, that will be part of the multi-purpose field phase, and there will absolutely be regrading of that area to get rid of the roller coaster. That was definitely a reoccurring theme among a lot of folks. Should we expect local high schools like Chatfield wanting to use the fields? No, they are if you're familiar with Little League terms, it is majors and below, and majors is usually 12-ish. We're not going to see kids who are hitting long balls out there and impacting other park users. It will be majors and below, which is exactly what it's used for today. Let's see, can you address parking? It doesn't really seem adequate for the multitude of activities that could occur. Is the assumption that we rely on the school parking lot for overflow? What about putting some parking on the east side of the bike park? Great question. So let's see. We've got a good slide up here. So the beauty between the relationship between the school and the district and the park is really a great one, because the school currently utilizes that southern parking lot. A lot of teachers park there during the day when we don't have high park use. And then of course, all the school kids and the teachers go home after school, and at about 5 o'clock, we use their parking lot. So that has been a really great relationship so far, and it's worked really successfully. People do park a lot on the street. And your question about having that be on the east side where it is currently, there's two issues with that. First one is that we have parking on the east side and we just don't see people using it. And then secondly, we heard loud and clear during the first two community meetings that people don't like that situation. They would rather have parking that's on the east side that feels much more safe for them, and it provides just better access overall. So hopefully that answered your question. Victoria, what else we got coming in there? Will there be lights for the pickleball courts? No, there will be no lights for the pickleball courts, and no lights for the softball fields either. Suggest higher fences around the courts and black noise windscreens. Actually, the good news is we're testing out what's called AcoustiFence, and that is going to be a part of the new land development project. The piece of property that is south of King Supers, there will be 4 pickleball courts there, and we're actually putting in what's called AcoustiFence, which is supposed to contain that noise and keep it away from neighbors. So yes, we will look at final design of that. Let's see. How much higher are the pickleball courts from the baseball fields? Ryan, I'm going to have you address that one.
At most, we obviously need to have a level playing surface, but to the other participants' question about protecting existing trees, this is conceptually located as a master plan level. We would definitely want to locate these pickleball courts to impact the least amount of trees within that area. And that being said, we want to work with the existing grades. And so as the parking lot is already at a higher point than the baseball fields, we just want to be thoughtful, and most likely that pickleball field will sit somewhere right in the middle, possibly level to the baseball fields.
Okay, great, thank you. If any of the fields become rolling, the builder will happily repair, right? Yes and no. So if it's within the warranty period, then yes, but if it's outside the warranty period, then no. That's why we're relying on experts like Kumar and Associates to assist with determining what type of excavation or over excavation needs to occur. Are the largest open fields regulation for lacrosse and or soccer? We actually don't have any, we haven't had any interest from lacrosse leagues at this point in time. We've actually reduced the number of user groups at Community Park over the last, say, 5 to 6 years. There used to be 2 soccer organizations that used it. Now there's just 1. There used to be 2 Little League associations using it, baseball, and now there's only 1. So we've actually reduced the number of leagues using it, but we haven't seen interest from any type of lacrosse. This is a detail that you might not yet have, but what will be the height of the fencing around the pickleball courts? So Diane, if you're interested, if you want to comment back with your email address, I can actually send you a link to the specifications that we are using for the land development project. And that will give you a better idea of what that might look like. So in general terms, I don't know the exact height, but on the sides, it would be the lower fence, and on the back ends, it would be a little bit higher. So we'll send you that link real quick because it gives you that full rundown. And the beauty of this is we get to test that out likely probably before anything happens with regard to pickleball courts at community parks. So we can test that design, see what works great, what didn't work so great, and we can change it when we get into final design later. Okay, has anyone raised their hands? No one's raised their hands? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we'll give you a couple of seconds to see if anyone has interest to raise their hand. Oh, another Q&A. Will you plan to provide recycling services instead of only trash? Yeah, great question. So we have different containers in different locations, but yes, that can certainly be a consideration for final design. And Richard's the man in charge of all of those different types of vessels, so he can definitely start looking for that information. But yes, we will do our best to make sure that we're recycling as best as we can. Are the largest open fields regulation for soccer? And when you say regulation, Jim, are you talking high school regulation, or what are you thinking? Because I think, okay, no, it's not large enough for high school. Victoria, you're the resident soccer expert here. So baseball is about 12 and below, but soccer would be about.
So Jim, it's generally like elementary and middle school soccer teams that would play on those fields. And even sometimes when you get into the older middle school ranges, the fields would be too small for those kids. So it's usually for those younger age groups that play at community park on those sizes.
Yeah. I guess we could probably refer to that as more recreational as opposed to competitive. Besides funding, what will impact decisions around phasing? Oh, great question. So there could be a lot of things that impact that. So we will be due for another community survey in 2025. Property taxes are impacting funding at this point in time. It always does. Let's see, the board just recently had an election, so we have the same members for the next 2 years. So that group of 5 will be able to coalesce around their vision for Ken Carroll. And in the last couple of years, that has been really challenging because we've had so much change within the board because of folks that left the district. So we'll have some consistency and we'll actually really be able to dig into priorities. So priorities will be changing that. The board's vision for where they want to go with King Carroll. I will say again, funding is always a consideration. Fundraising and partnerships are a consideration. And I'll just throw out an example. If folks come to the table and they say, gosh, we can pay for half of this project, we want to really move this along, that obviously will impact decisions about phasing. So hopefully that answered your question. If not, please feel free to jump in and ask another one. Repeat the answer to the question about rolling. You didn't hear the answer. So really, I think it was the question about if we experience additional heaving, will the builder come back and warranty that? Well, obviously, if it's within the warranty period, yes. If it's outside the warranty period, no. We are really fortunate to have Kumar and Associates assisting us with that expert technical side of where mitigation needs to occur, and we will heavily rely upon that for final design. New one? Oh, that's the same. Oh, how will decisions be made about who can use the ball fields scheduling? So I I don't anticipate us changing how it currently occurs. So the primary user of the ball fields is Ken Carroll Little League. The primary user of the multi-purpose fields is NFL flag football, who only uses it on Sundays. And then, oh gosh, they just changed their name. United Soccer? Colorado United Soccer. So those are the three primary user groups, and what those user groups do, and any user group can submit a request to us in advance of the season. We accept rentals 2 times a year for the spring and the fall. They submit their requests. We vet all of the requests that are occurring, and we will then provide them with schedules and contracts after that. Hopefully that answered your question. If not, please follow up. Still no one raising their hand? No one's brave enough to get on? No one? Still no one? Oh, got another Q&A. Oh, great. Thanks, Diane. Here's one. Yay, we have someone. Oh, let me get this one Q&A and then we can jump. So with the additional activities associated with this expansion, have there been any traffic studies done or consideration of the additional traffic on Sangre de Cristo? We have not done any traffic studies. So the difficult part about doing a traffic study for something that we don't necessarily know, it is challenging for certain. What we will do is we will make sure that we are not what I would consider over scheduling the park. So let me give you an example. So it's Little League opening day and the soccer club wants to have a tournament and someone wants to have an event over at Prairie Meadows. And I'm obviously being a little bit facetious with this, trying to paint a picture for you, but we will do our best not to over schedule that area so that there's less impact to the community. Hopefully that makes sense. The existing usage, even if we did have special events or additional special events, that additional parking on the eastern side, and then the availability of folks to be able to currently use the school parking lot is really very successful right now. And we don't anticipate that increasing tremendously if we do start to have additional special events. Yeah, let's go to Leah, and Donald, we'll be right back to you. We're going to go to Leah first and then we'll be back.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to tell you all that I think you've done an excellent job with this. The presentations have been great, and I'm watching with my son, and we are frequent users of the park. I live very, very close to the park, and I'm not at all worried about any additional traffic or anything. I think this is a wonderful amenity for the community, and one of the reasons that we bought our home here. So we're happy for the expansion, and thank you for being water wise and really considering all of the different people who would like to use this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your comments, Leah. All right, let's jump back to Donald. Please address safety and security features related to the restrooms. Fantastic question. So we currently use what's called an automatic locking mechanism on the ranch house outdoor restrooms and then the community center tennis court restrooms. And we're expanding that to be providing some restroom use for park users at Bradford and using that space that has traditionally just been for the pool for also park users. And that automatic locking mechanism will lock at a certain hour. So we are not proposing having park restrooms open 24 hours a day by any means. So we will have those align with park hours. And that is the one really good thing, that we don't have to have someone physically out there checking on those. We have really had a hard time with security cameras. A lot of folks want us to invest a lot of money in security cameras, and we find significant challenges with security cameras. I know that is somewhat of a common solution for folks, is just to install security cameras. And security cameras sometimes will instill a false sense of security, which we certainly don't want people to have that. And we don't necessarily see, even with the places that are cameraed right now, we don't see people deterred from, say, breaking into cars when there's a purse sitting in the front seat. So I know I'm being super broad with this answer, but there's security measures within the restroom where we'll have a locking mechanism and we're not leaving them open 24 hours a day. But the great part about this is because of the park's high use, not only in the afternoons, evenings and weekends, but the school. So we're right next door to the school and we have the teachers using that parking lot and we have the school classes coming over and using it for PE. So there's great usage right now. And that is one of the best deterrents for people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So if you want to chat more about that, I'd be happy to jump on the phone or even if you wanted to visit in person, we can talk through some of your specific concerns. But certainly reply back and we can chat more. Let's see, Jim, do you envision an event needing a stage with a large audience in this park? Maybe. And so Ryan did a really great job of explaining that number 10 area. So if you look back on the diagram, that sloped lawn seating. So I could at some point in time envision a stage being on the field, and maybe that is an opportunity for us to have additional seating for maybe a larger event. So certainly the cool part about parks is you can be as creative as you want to be with events, and we just have to make it fit within what the existing schedule and the usage is. Donald, who will clean and maintain the restrooms? That will be parks. So Richard and his crew will be in charge of that right now. All right, any other takers on raising a hand? Let's see, we got one more Q&A. Diane, would there be a bike park area for younger kids and older kids? Oh, interesting question. Ryan, do you want to maybe scoot over to that? And so Diane, are you thinking we'd have a separate area? So a younger kids area and then an older kids area? Is that what you're referring to?
Tracy, could I speak a little bit to that too?
Yeah, totally. Okay,
Great.
so she said yes, she's thinking it would be nice to have separate areas. Okay, good. Thanks for the clarification. Yeah, Ryan, go for it.
Yeah, so the nice thing about this, if everybody can kind of visualize this little area in their head, it meets at the intersection of the roads. So this is a nice level point where we have the existing parking lot. And as you move up, it becomes steeper and steeper. And as you can see here, there's a lot of room for real estate. And so there would definitely be an opportunity to have maybe a little steeper area for older kids and maybe a bit more shallower, more flat roll around area for the younger kids.
And some cool opportunities for us to work potentially with the trail club. I know there's been interest in having that partnership someplace. And so this would be a really interesting opportunity for us to pursue that. Any other raised hands? You guys are all shy tonight. All right. Any other questions? While we're waiting for any last ones to come in, please keep in mind, we have a handful of meetings coming up. So obviously the Community Planning Committee on the 22nd, and then we have the district board on the 23rd. And then at any point in time that you want to reach out and talk through anything, please feel free. Also, keep in mind, and scream this from the rooftops if you have to, we are not putting a shovel in the ground tomorrow. That is not how this process works. We are at the 30,000 foot level, and as the board directs us to move forward, we will continue to come down in altitude and get more granular with the plans and the project. So expect that to occur as fast as the board and the community would like to do so. All right. I think we've gotten everyone. Thanks everyone for joining us. We will get this loaded to the website probably tomorrow. And so feel free to let everyone know that if they weren't able to attend tonight, they can always take part in the recording. And thanks Brightview for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, have a great night, everyone.